Well, we have to note then now how very different conflict theorists' connection to feminist theory is than functional theorists. And we've talked about those basic differences before. Now remember, conflict theories in general attempt to determine the basis of social inequality. They talk about unequal access to scarce resources, and they talk about our interactions in society being steeped in power and status, and that these notions of power and status are what cause us to have inequality in our relationships. This is the foundation of social stratification. Marx talked about this in terms of a two-class society called the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. The bourgeoisie were Marx's haves, and the proletariat were Marx's have-nots. And he said that these two groups would be in constant competition over those scarce resources. The bourgeoisie trying to hold on to as much of those valuable resources as they could, and the proletariat attempting to figure out how to get their slice of the pie. If we use conflict theory as a foundation for feminist theory, and we do in sociology, that's exactly the foundation of feminist theory, we can take the terms bourgeoisie and proletariat and instead change them to men and women. Men having the relationships that have a lot of power and status in society, and women trying to get their slice of the pie. Now, historically, we can go back to one of the contemporaries of Marx to see where women first entered the conversation with regard to conflict theory in general. And Engels was really the first person who wrote about women and their roles or places in society. And he came up with a couple of very important ideas. He said that marriage was a form of gendered oppression. And he saw marriage as a mechanism, a structure, if you will, of society that worked to keep women in their place and to ensure male inheritance. Now I want you to think about, again, back in the day in the West, we're talking about the 1700s and the 1800s up to about 1900, maybe 1910. And in a lot of these Western nations, women didn't really have a lot of control over their destiny in society, especially if the family was well-to-do. That woman was expected to marry a man who also had some foundation socially. And if that man couldn't be found, let's say that man had a pedigree but no money in his family, well, the money that she would bring to the marriage would go to him. She would lose all of that inheritance to her husband. So we can see where that power struggle would have started. And this was an important historical foundation to contemporary feminist thought in America. Not only the first wave of the feminist movement, which was all about the right to vote, but the second and third subsequent waves can find their foundation in the work of Engels, can find their foundation in conflict theory in general. Basic Marxist theory leads to feminist conflict theory. This is a macro level perspective, and so it's not looking at how we can change interactions at the intimate level. It is, however, looking at how we can change the structured inequalities in society, as conflict theory always does, looking at that imbalance and ways to make things more equitable for marginalized groups. And while early conflict theory was talking about what I like to call white bread society, it didn't necessarily factor in the experiences of any marginalized groups. It is important for us to understand the implications of that, in that it has led us to the multicultural feminist movement. It has led us to concepts such as intersectionality, and it has allowed us to develop new feminist thought which incorporates some of those issues and concerns of groups whose voices have not been heard in the past. I hope this helps. Take care.